without a regime change, do you feel like Iranian hostility towards America and its American allies will ever end? Yeah, which I agree with. I don't think it ever will.
No, because they're an Islamic regime,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Islamism especially is always going to be anti-West.
Anti-Western. Okay. So we agree on that tenet. But what I'd say is then, does the U.S. have a plan right now to actually install a regime change to facilitate that? It doesn't seem like they do, nor the capability. And without that in place with our current government, I don't see why we're getting again involved in a war where we don't see ourselves ending up. And I don't want this to end up like Iraq or where we go in and or Afghanistan where we go in for 20
Agreed.
years and
Agreed.
we leave without any success really, because we can both consider both of those wars failures, right?
We're here at UCLA University, and I believe striking Iran is America first, and I want to hear what people have to say about that. Let's do something. My name is Nick.
I'm an Anish.
Anish, nice to meet you. Okay, so what's your thoughts on, let's start with the strikes in Iran on February 28th and on.
Yeah, so I think you bring up a good point earlier. It's America first, protecting American interests and the allies, but and the regional allies, non-NATO allies such as Saudi, Qatar. But I think this is more my stance is more going against what our president said in the past, which was not being a war first nation during this time and not getting involved in conflicts which um don't have a sound end to them. I would say that I just don't see the avenues at which the Iran conflict will end in a positive or clean way. We talked about, for example, the strikes that went down killed the Ayatollah, but the Iranian political system is structured so there was no really political regime change or instability that was caused by that. And I think as long as Iran has the capacity to keep attacking Israel, which they seem that they do, the U.S. is going to be embroiled in this conflict for at least the next months, if not years.
Sure, to start with your first point, it is interesting as President Trump has hinted at that, but it's very important to know, and a lot of people do cut, and I'm not saying he did on purpose,
Yeah.
a lot of people kind of cut off his sentences kind of halfway. He's always made it very clear, pretty much, I mean, he's really talked about it since 1980 is the first time he said we should take military action against Iran, but even since 2011, he has consistently said military options should never be taken off the table and to exhaust negotiations first, which, to be fair, he really exhausted negotiation efforts. I mean, it was almost to an annoying point for some people how much he was trying to negotiate with a very bad faith actor like the IRGC. To your second point about kind of like it feels endless, that's kind of where my position is that this is about finishing the job, not necessarily for regime change. That is not an official position of the U.S. government, technically. Of course, that would be desired. I think a lot of people, even those that are kind of against the war, desire a regime change. I don't think there's many people that love the IRGC.
Yep.
But what I would say is every couple years, sometimes even more often, it feels like either United States or our regional allies, specifically Israel, have to continuously go in, kind of weaken the IRGC, stop their nuclear programs. Have you heard of Stuxnet?
I have not heard of sex.
Stuxnet was a computer virus, actually. It must have created by Israel, but it was a U.S.-Israeli operation that messed, to put it lightly, it messed with the centrifuges of the Iranians' uranium enrichment process.
Okay.
And, we do either stuff like that, espionage missions. Sometimes these nuclear scientists kind of just die. And it's every couple years it seems to be happening like that. Not to mention the IRGC proxy groups, Hamas, PIJ, Hezbollah, Houthis, etc. This, for me, the four major goals right now that President Trump has aligned out, a lot of people say he doesn't have a plan. This has been aligned from the very beginning. Weaken their military, right? Specifically Navy and Air Force, but weaken their military, stop their ballistic missiles program, destroy it, and their nuclear capabilities.
Okay.
For me, if you do that, even if hypothetically the regime stands after, which I hope not for the sake of the Iranian people, tens of thousands of them are getting slaughtered in the streets in just days. But let's put that aside and just talk about American interests right now.
Okay.
Not to sound insensitive.
Yeah.
But if that happens, that will, at least for a prolonged period at minimum, would weaken the IRGC so much to where we wouldn't have these whole every so months or a couple years, these extreme attacks, October 7th, IRGC, all the way back to like the Beirut bombing. And even just in the last 2 years, 45 Americans, give or take, were killed by IRGC proxy groups.
So you talk a little bit about, or the main point you made was American first interests, and one of those that I heard was so weaken military is one, right, and then it was destroy their nuclear capabilities. Well, haven't our reports shown that we have destroyed their nuclear sites? We've already conducted extensive bombings on those, and as far as the U.S. is concerned, that we feel confident that their nuclear program cannot go on much longer. So right now, what is America's role, and why are they still involved? Protecting Florida's trade. Is that what you say?
So what you're talking about was the 12-day war with the B-2 bombings.
Yeah.
B-2 bombings definitely hit some of their nuclear sites. Now, there are some reports, and the IRGC has been kind of bragging that they actually moved a lot of the uranium, and they still have it, and they have the capability to, I think to quote them, they said 11 to 12 nuclear bombs. And the difference is that even if we assume only a 60% enrichment, which the IAEA report is what stated, a lot of people think, oh, it's 60%, not 90%, which is weapons grade uranium. Well, at least to make a strong nuclear missile. What people don't understand is that can be weeks depending on the equipment that they do or don't have. We don't know the extent of their centrifuge damage. We also don't know if they're hiding other centrifuges. Remember, a lot of the nuclear facilities that were in existence that the IRGC was using, a lot of them, they had to get exposed for having those. It wasn't like they ever admitted. So there's a lot of assumptions. There's a lot of reports that says, even though, of course, there was major damage by the B-2 bombers, that's not the end of their nuclear capabilities.
Okay. So, I guess another point that I bring up, which kind of strays a little bit and kind of talks more about what I was talking about, the need for end, is that what is without a regime change, do you feel like Iranian hostility towards America and its American allies will ever end? Yeah, which I agree with. I don't think it ever will.
No, because they're an Islamic regime,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Islamism especially is always going to be anti-West.
Anti-Western. Okay. So we agree on that tenet. But what I'd say is then, does the U.S. have a plan right now to actually install a regime change to facilitate that? It doesn't seem like they do, nor the capability. And without that in place with our current government, I don't see why we're getting again involved in a war where we don't see ourselves ending up. But I don't want this to end up like Iraq, or where we go in, and or Afghanistan, where we go in for 20
Agreed.
years and
Agreed.
we leave without any success, really, because we can both consider both of those wars failures, right?
I would say for Iraq, I think a lot of people like to say Iraq was. I was in the military for 12 years.
Okay. Yeah.
There's a lot of
Serious,
people.
by the
Thank
way.
you. A lot of people that say Iraq was a failure. The reason Iraq was a failure was how long we stayed, 100%. Iraq should have been more like the Gulf War, where we go in, accomplish our missions, and we get out.
Yeah.
So 100%, I'm with you. I do not want to send boots on the ground, especially for an elongated period of time in Iran. To answer your original question, is that an official goal to actually do a regime change? A lot of people think it is, but technically no, actually.
Right.
Trump has mentioned that that's what he desires, of course. I think a lot of people desire
Yeah.
a regime change. Again, they're slaughtering their own people, tens of thousands in the streets. They're slaughtering women because they're taking off their hijabs. It's insane. However, what I would rather see is America to isolate the IRGC and their strongholds and significantly weaken them to the point that rebellion groups, 80 to 90% of the people of Iran do not like their government and want, at minimum, significant change. So it's
Agreed.
not like
Yeah.
Iraq, right? There's not a lot of Islamic nationalism, if you will, in Iran. If you look it up right now, it'll say 99% of Iran are Muslim. Except the thing is, people don't realize that in Iran, they tell you you're Muslim from birth. And then they obviously have a social pressure to not convert out of Islam, right?
Okay.
And so there is a lot of people who on paper are Muslim. However, what do we think about the actual percentage of Muslims, or at least those that are pious? Probably significantly less.
But you said a point about how Islamic nationalists doesn't really play. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. You said that it's not really, they don't play a role in the government as much. But from what
Not the government.
No,
I'm talking about the people.
Oh, the people.
Yeah, the
Okay,
government. No, yeah,
The government, yeah,
they are
okay.
Islamists. They are
To the core,
terrorists.
exactly,
Yes,
right?
100%.
So-
yeah.
And we talk about weakening the IRGC a lot, and that is inherently connected to the government. That is the
That is the
supreme-
government.
yeah, that is the government. Yeah, that's the supreme leader's sidearm. What the
Right.
personal branch, right?
Essentially, our military that
Yeah.
expands into multiple branches. That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just kind of trying to think, like, it is America first, but why America first in the Middle East? And I'm kind of more of a sorry, I'm kind of going around in circles here.
No, that's okay. I understand. You are worried about another Iraq and Afghanistan.
Yeah, I think
Trust
that's
me.
the best
I
way to
think
say
a
it.
lot of Americans are. And the unfortunate, we have like this weird generational, it's not weird, but we have either PTSD to a generational trauma about Iraq, Afghanistan. A lot of people like to mention times where when we as America went in and it didn't work out best for us, and we can look back and be like, that wasn't the best thing. Like Iraq, for example, I think the first weeks to maybe even just months, I think Iraq was great in that sense, right? We accomplished our goals. We should have just got out. Hindsight's 2020. A lot of people don't like to mention the times that America did intervention and it worked really, really well to the point of even regime changes, even back as World War II.
Sure.
Nobody legitimate would say, that was a failure too. Okay. Yeah. Even the Gulf War, right, which is in the Middle East, obviously. Even that was months. We did our mission, our operations, and we got out. A lot of people, I mean, I'm not going to say there's not some things you can mention that were bad, but people don't generally bring that up as much as they do Iraq, Afghanistan for a reason. Even the Korean War, et cetera, et cetera. You get the point. Point is, a lot of people do cherry pick. The thing is this is not Iraq. This is not Afghanistan. I get it. People just think, I don't know, brown people, Muslim country, Middle East, same thing. It's not, right? One, again, the Islamic nationalism, not in the government, but the people in Iran, it's not the same. Okay, we're talking about tens of thousands of people that were slaughtered in just days by the Islamic regime. 80% to some sources say 90% of the Iranian people, if not don't support the regime, at minimum want a significant major change. And so this is not the same thing. Also, I do not support elongated boots on the ground where we're going in and trying to stay there for so many years, trying to implement it ourselves. I wouldn't personally support that. So we have to stop thinking that everything is Iraq and Afghanistan. Make the case. If you think it is the same, then make the case. But unfortunately, a lot of people, they just say it is, but they can't really make the case on why it is.
Yeah, no, I think you bring up a good point. It's not the same, and there were tons of different confounding factors, and the main one here is that the people are not as aligned with the government in their position. Do you see, and this is kind of just a question, we're not really debating at this point, I'm kind of just asking you, do you see Iran becoming, with a successful regime change, do you see them becoming a ally in the same way of, Saudi is to us?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think if
that is the American
it seems like generally speaking, there is separate groups that don't like the regime but also don't like the Shah. But generally speaking, it seems like most Iranians want to put in the Shah. I believe the Shah,
right?
Pahlavi.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
The Shah, I'll call him the exiled crown prince, if you will. He, I think, has made it clear, from my understanding, that he wants to go in, have like a little bit of a go in, but also have like a democracy, and actually put in. But from my understanding, the Iranian people want to put that in. Even if we had a I think he'd be very pro-America, but even if we had a semi-pro-American government, anything would be better than people who've been screaming death to America for 20 years.
Yeah.
Or, more than 20 years, for decades, excuse me. They pretty much call us the big Satan, and they call Israel the little Satan all the time. So that's my thought on it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, sorry, I enjoyed talking to you. I don't really have much to say, but it was great talking to you.
Great talking to you. Thank you.
So much.
Wow, that was a great conversation. If you guys want to see more great conversations and more videos like this, hit that subscribe button. Let's do something.